Arthur Morgan's hands trembled as he placed the simple gold band on Clementine Washington's finger. The morning air hung thick with mist and whispered judgment. 4:30 in the morning. The preacher's words echoed across the empty train platform, like stones dropped in still water. Behind them, lamplight flickered in windows, faces pressed against glass. The town watched from the shadows, hungry for scandal. 6 hours earlier, Arthur had found her sitting alone on a leather trunk. Her traveling dress was wrinkled. Her eyes were red from crying. The last train had departed. The station master had locked up and gone home. She looked up when his boots scraped the wooden planks. Her face held the kind of dignity that comes from swallowing pride too many times. "He's not coming back," she said. No introduction needed. The whole town knew about Dutch van der Linde's mail-order bride. They'd watched him inspect her like livestock when she stepped off the train. They'd heard his cruel verdict echo across the platform. "Too wide," he'd announced. "Not suitable for a man of his standing." Arthur had watched from the saloon window. Shame burned in his chest. Not for her. For the town that let it happen. "Got nowhere to go?" he asked. She shook her head. Her fingers worked the handle of her carpetbag. "Spent everything I had getting here." The station felt smaller with her pain filling it. Arthur studied her face. Strong jaw. Intelligent eyes. The kind of woman who'd survived worse than this. "I got a proposition," he said. "Might sound crazy." Her laugh held no humor. "Crazy's all I got left." He sat beside her on the trunk. The leather creaked under his weight. "Need a wife by dawn. Legal requirement. My father's will has conditions." She turned to study him. "Really look." Past the worn clothes and calloused hands. "What kind of conditions?" "Married man keeps the land, single man loses it." Arthur's voice carried the weight of generations. "Creditors come at sunrise. Either I got a wife or they got my property." The wind picked up. It carried the scent of sawdust and distant fires. The smell of a working town built on timber and determination. "Why would you help me?" she asked. "Why would you help me?" he countered. They sat in the kind of silence that holds entire conversations, both understanding the desperation that brought them to this moment, both knowing that survival sometimes required impossible choices. "What's your name?" she asked. "Arthur Morgan." "Clementine Washington." No handshake, no pleasantries. Just two people standing at the edge of a cliff, deciding whether to jump together or fall alone. "I got a cabin," Arthur said. "Small, clean, you'd have a roof." "I got an education," Clementine replied. "Business training. Might be useful." They spoke in practical terms. Marriage as transaction, partnership as necessity. Neither mentioned the loneliness that sat between them like a third person. Arthur found the preacher at his kitchen table. Reverend Swanson owed him favors, a roof repair, firewood for the winter, the kind of debts that matter in small towns. "This is irregular," Swanson said, pulling on his coat. "So is stealing a man's inheritance," Arthur replied. The ceremony lasted 3 minutes. Clementine wore her traveling dress. Arthur wore his father's Sunday shirt. No flowers, no music. Just words spoken into the darkness while a town full of gossips pretended to sleep. "You may kiss the bride," Swanson said. Arthur and Clementine looked at each other. The weight of their choice settled between them. He touched her hand instead. Brief, gentle, a promise they'd figure out the rest. Later, as they walked toward his cabin, the first light touched the horizon. Behind them, Dutch van der Linde's mansion sat dark and silent. The man who'd thrown away something precious now faced the morning alone. Arthur's cabin crouched among the pine trees like a secret. Smoke curled from the chimney. He'd kept the fire burning all night, hoping. "It's not much," he said. Clementine studied the solid walls, the straight roof, the careful stonework around the foundation. It's honest work, she said. That's more than most can claim. Inside, the cabin held the warmth of a man who understood simple comforts. Clean floors, mended furniture, books on a shelf beside the fireplace. You can read? She asked. My father insisted. Arthur moved to the stove. Coffee? Please. They sat at his kitchen table as husband and wife. Strangers bound by law and necessity. The coffee was strong. The silence was comfortable. Outside, the town began to stir. Footsteps on wooden sidewalks. Doors opening. The whispered conversations that would follow them for weeks. They'll talk, Clementine said. Let them. Arthur met her eyes across the table. We got bigger problems than gossip. She nodded. Understanding passed between them. They'd chosen each other in desperation. Now they had to make it work. The morning sun climbed higher. Somewhere in town, creditors were waking up. Dutch van der Linde was nursing his wounded pride. The preacher was writing their names in his registry. Arthur and Clementine Morgan sat in the growing light, drinking coffee and planning their survival. The hardest part was behind them. The real work was just beginning. The cabin felt smaller in daylight. Arthur stood at the stove, bacon crackling in the iron pan. Clementine sat at the table, her ledger book open between them. Numbers told stories that words couldn't soften. How long since you've been paid? She asked. Arthur's shoulders tensed. 6 weeks. She traced the columns with her finger. Debts stacked on debts. Interest growing while wages disappeared. The arithmetic of failure written in careful script. Dutch owns the contracts, Arthur said. Controls who gets work. And now he controls your income. Clementine closed the book. Convenient. The bacon spat grease. Arthur flipped it with movements too sharp, too controlled. Had to take what I could get. You've been taking scraps. Her voice carried no judgment. Just fact. While he builds an empire on your labor. Arthur set the plate before her. Steam rose between them. He'd given her the larger portion without thinking. The gesture of a man raised to provide. Eat, he said. She studied his face. The lines around his eyes. The way his hands moved carefully, conservatively. A man who'd learned to make less stretch further. We need to see the mill, she said. We? I'm your wife now. The words sat heavy in the morning air. Your problems are mine. Arthur's crew worked the timber like men dancing with death. Saws bit through heartwood. Axes rang against pine. The forest fell in measured violence, trees crashing where calculation met force. Clementine watched from the edge of the clearing. Her traveling dress looked foreign among the sweat and sawdust. The men glanced at her sideways, curious, cautious. That's her, one whispered. The one Dutch sent back. Arthur's wife now. Another replied. Arthur's mistake, the first corrected. She heard every word. Let them settle in her chest beside older hurts. Her face remained still as pond water. Arthur worked the crosscut saw with John Marston. The blades sang through timber. Their rhythm spoke of years working together. Trust built in shared labor. She's watching, John said between strokes. Let her watch. Men are talking. Men always talk, Arthur bore down harder. The saw bit deeper. They'll find something else soon enough. But the talking continued. It followed them through the morning, whispered behind stacked logs, muttered over lunch pails, the slow poison of small-town judgment. Clementine moved through the worksite. She counted board feet, estimated timber grades. Her eyes tracked the flow of materials with the precision of someone who understood supply chains. You know this business, Arthur said when she joined him. Numbers are numbers. She brushed sawdust from her sleeve. Doesn't matter if it's lumber or grain. What do you see? She gestured toward the mill in the distance. Dutch's operation dominated the valley. Smoke rose from multiple stacks. The sound of machinery echoed off the mountains. Waste, she said. You're cutting premium timber. Selling. It as common grade. Arthur's jaw tightened. That's what Dutch pays for. Dutch resells it at premium prices. Her voice carried the weight of understanding. He's stealing the difference. The wind shifted. It carried the scent of fresh sawdust and distant rain. Storm clouds gathered above the peaks. The kind of weather that shut down logging operations. "Storm's coming," John called out. "We should head back." The crew began securing equipment, covering lumber, the practiced movements of men who'd learned to read the sky's moods. Arthur walked beside Clementine toward the cabin. The first fat raindrop struck the dust, each one a small explosion of earth and water. "Your friends don't trust me," she said. "They don't trust change." Arthur's voice carried old weariness. Been burned too many times. By Dutch, by promises. The rain came harder. They ran the last 100 yards. Reached the porch as the sky opened. Water drummed against the roof with the insistence of truth. Inside, the cabin felt warm and close. Arthur built up the fire while Clementine stood at the window. She watched the rain wash the dust from the world. "We could start our own operation," she said. Arthur's hands stilled on the kindling. "With what money?" "With what we know." She turned from the window. "You understand the work." "I understand the business. Dutch won't let us compete. Dutch doesn't own the forest." The fire caught. Light danced across the cabin walls. Arthur sat back on his heels. His face reflected the flame's uncertainty. "It's not that simple," he said. "It's exactly that simple." Clementine moved to the table. Spread his ledger open again. "You're already doing the work. You're just not getting paid for it." She traced routes on the hand-drawn map, marked timber stands, calculated distances to rail lines. Her finger moved with the confidence of someone who saw patterns others missed. "There's a section north of here," she said. "Good timber, close to the new rail spur. That's Miller land." Was Miller land? She tapped the map. "He died last spring." Widows looking to sell. Arthur studied the territory she'd marked. Prime timber. Good access. The kind of opportunity that came once in a generation. "Would take everything we have," he said. "We don't have anything." Her voice held no bitterness. "Just clarity. That's why we can risk it." Thunder rolled across the valley. The storm was settling in. The kind of weather that made men think about shelter and safety. Arthur looked at his wife, this stranger who'd become his partner, who saw possibilities where he saw only problems. "You really think we could do it?" "I think we have to." She closed the ledger. "Unless you want to spend the rest of your life making Dutch richer." The rain drummed against the windows. Outside, the world was being washed clean. Inside, too. People sat in firelight, planning their rebellion. The storm would pass. The sun would return. And when it did, Arthur and Clementine Morgan would begin building something that belonged to them alone. The Miller widow's kitchen smelled of old sorrow and fresh bread. She poured coffee with hands that trembled slightly. Age or grief? Arthur couldn't tell. "Haven't had visitors in weeks," she said. Clementine sat straight in her chair. Her dress was mended but clean. Her manner spoke of education and refinement. The widow noticed. "You're the one Dutch sent back," she said. "I'm Arthur's wife now." No shame in Clementine's voice. Just fact. The widow studied them both. Her eyes held the wisdom of someone who'd buried dreams alongside husbands. "What do you want with my timber?" Arthur spread the survey maps across the scarred table. His finger traced property lines. "Fair price. Clean deal. Cash?" The word hung between them, heavy as fallen timber. Arthur's jaw tightened. Clementine's fingers stilled on her coffee cup. "Working on it," Arthur said. The widow's smile held no warmth. "Everyone's working on it. Dutch made me the same promise." "We're not Dutch," Clementine said. "No, you're not." The widow folded the maps. But you're just as broke. They walked the timber stands in silence. Ancient pines rose toward gray sky. The forest floor was thick with decades of fallen needles. Each step released the scent of earth and time. Premium lumber, Arthur said. Worth a fortune. Clementine touched the bark of a massive pine. If we can get it to market, if we can afford to cut it. She turned to study his face. The doubt was eating at him. Growing like fungus in damp wood. You're giving up already. I'm being realistic. Realistic men don't marry strangers at dawn. Her voice carried steel beneath velvet. They don't risk everything on desperate plans. A hawk circled overhead. Its cry echoed through the trees. Lonesome and defiant. Arthur watched it ride the thermals with effortless grace. What aren't you telling me? He asked. The question settled between them, heavy with implications. Clementine's hand moved to her carpet bag. The leather was worn smooth by countless journeys. I had a different life, she said. Before. We all did. Mine was privileged. The words came slowly. Each one carefully chosen. My father owned businesses. Invested in education. Believed in progress. Arthur waited. The forest held its breath around them. I was a teacher, she continued. Had plans. Ambitions. Then everything fell apart. What happened? She didn't answer. Instead, she opened her bag. Withdrew a leather portfolio. Inside were documents. Bank papers. Official seals. There's a trust, she said. Money set aside for my education. My future. Arthur stared at the papers. The numbers were staggering. Enough to buy the Miller land, purchase equipment, fund their entire operation. Why didn't you tell me? Because accessing it means going back. Her voice barely rose above the wind. Facing what I ran from. What did you run from? She folded the papers, placed them back in the portfolio. Her movements were precise, controlled, the actions of someone who'd learned to lock away pain. Questions I can't answer, she said. Accusations I can't deny, the hawk cried again. This time it sounded like warning. That evening, Dutch van der Linde's carriage rolled up to Arthur's cabin. The man himself stepped down. His clothes were immaculate. His smile was poison-wrapped. In silk. Arthur, he called out. A word. Arthur emerged from the cabin. His hand rested on the axe handle by the door. Not threatening, just ready. Dutch. Heard you've been visiting the Miller place. Dutch's voice carried casual menace. Talking business. Free country, indeed. Dutch glanced. Toward the cabin window. Clementine stood there, watching. How's married life treating you? Well enough. Good, good. Dutch adjusted his cufflinks. Because I'd hate to see you make poor decisions. Investments you can't afford. The threat hung in the evening air, clear as wood smoke. Arthur's grip tightened on the axe handle. My business is my business, Arthur said. Your business affects my business. Dutch's smile never wavered. I control the timber contracts. The rail shipping. The mill operations. For now. For always. Dutch climbed back into his carriage. Unless you want to find yourself with no work. No income, no way to support. That new bride of yours. The carriage rolled away. Its wheels carved ruts in the soft earth. Arthur stood in the gathering darkness, watching Dutch's lantern disappear down the valley road. Inside, Clementine waited by the fire. Her face reflected the dancing flames. She'd heard every word. He's scared, she said. He's powerful. Same thing. She moved to the window. Dutch's light was a distant star now. Powerful men don't threaten unless they're afraid. Afraid of what? Losing control. She turned from the window. Her eyes held new determination. We're going to contact the trust. Arthur felt the ground shift beneath his feet. Are you sure? I'm sure we can't beat Dutch with nothing. She pulled the portfolio from her bag. Time to risk everything. The papers crackled in the firelight. Each document was a door to the past, a key to the future. Arthur watched his wife prepare to unlock both. "What will they ask?" he said. "Everything." Her voice was steady, resigned. "Where I've been, what I've done, why I left. Will you tell them?" "I'll tell them what they need to know." She sealed the documents in an envelope. "The rest is between us." Arthur studied her face, the courage it took to face judgment, the strength required to risk everything for a chance at something better. "We'll face it together," he said. She looked up from the envelope. Surprise flickered in her eyes, then gratitude, then something deeper, something that might grow into love given time and tending. "Together," she agreed. The fire settled into coals. Outside, the night was still, but change was coming. Arthur could feel it in the air, in the way his wife held herself, in the promise they just made. Tomorrow they would send the letter. Tonight they would plan their future. Two people, against the world, building something from nothing. The coals glowed like hope in the darkness. The telegraph response came 3 days later. Arthur watched Clementine's face as she read. Her fingers tightened on the paper. The color drained from her cheeks. "What do they want?" he asked. "Proof." She folded the telegram. "Documentation of my circumstances. References. A detailed explanation." "Of what?" "Why I left Philadelphia." Her voice carried the weight of buried shame. "Why I never returned." Arthur reached for the telegram. She pulled it away. Some wounds were too tender for sharing, even between husband and wife. "They know about the school," she said. The words hung between them, heavy with unspoken accusations. Arthur had heard fragments, whispered gossip from traveling merchants, a scandal involving missing funds, a teacher who disappeared in the night. "Tell me," he said. Clementine moved to the window. Outside, storm clouds gathered over the mountains. The light was failing early, the way it did before hard weather. "I taught at the Garrison Academy," she said. "Wealthy children, important families. They hired me because I was exceptional, and because I was useful." Her breath fogged. The glass, a colored teacher, made them look progressive, forward thinking. Arthur waited. The cabin felt smaller with her pain filling it. "The headmaster was stealing," she continued, "skimming from the scholarship fund. Money meant for poor children. You found out. I reported it." She turned from the window. "To the board, to the authorities. Did everything proper. They didn't believe you. They believed me." Her smile held no warmth. "They just didn't care." Thunder rolled across the valley. The first drops of rain struck the roof. Arthur understood now. The choice she'd faced. The price of standing up to power. "So they blamed you instead," he said. "Easier to sacrifice one teacher than admit the whole system was corrupt." She sat at the table. "My father advised me to confess, take responsibility, make it go away. Quietly. But you didn't. I ran." The words came out broken. "Left everyone who believed in me. Proved I was exactly what they said I was." The rain came harder. It drummed against the cabin with the insistence of truth. Arthur studied his wife's face, the courage it had taken to flee, the strength required to survive. "You were protecting yourself," he said. "I was being a coward. You were being human." She looked up at him. Surprise flickered in her eyes. Then, something deeper. Gratitude for understanding she'd never expected to receive. A knock at the door shattered the moment. Heavy, insistent. Arthur opened it to find Sheriff Micah Bell standing in the rain. His badge gleamed dully in the lamplight. "Evening, Arthur. Sheriff, need to discuss your marriage." Micah pushed past him into the cabin. Official business. Clementine rose from the table. Her back was straight, her chin lifted. the posture of someone who'd faced accusations before. "Ma'am," Micah touched his hat. "Questions have been raised about the circumstances of your union." "What kind of questions?" Arthur asked. "Whether it's legitimate." Micah's eyes moved around the cabin, taking inventory, looking for evidence. "Some folks think it might be fraudulent. We're legally married." "Legally, yes." Micah opened a notebook. "But the timing raises concerns. Desperate man, desperate woman. Convenient arrangement. That's not illegal. Fraud is." Micah's pen scratched across paper. "If you married to circumvent debt obligations, or to help her avoid prosecution for past crimes." The words hit Clementine like physical blows. She steadied herself against the table. Arthur moved to her side. "She's not charged with anything," Arthur said. "Not yet," Micah smiled. "But I've been corresponding with authorities in Philadelphia." Interesting reading. The rain lashed against the windows. The storm was settling in. The kind of weather that trapped people together. Forced truths into the open. "What do you want, Micah?" "Documentation. Proof your marriage is genuine." He closed the notebook. "Living arrangements, financial records, evidence of conjugal relations." Heat flooded Arthur's face. "That's private." "Not when fraud is suspected." Micah moved toward the door. "You have 1 week. Produce the evidence or face charges." He left them standing in the lamplight. The rain swallowed his footsteps. The cabin felt smaller now, contaminated by his presence. "Dutch is behind this," Clementine said. "Can't prove it." "Don't need to prove it." She moved to the bedroom. "Need to survive it." Arthur followed her. The small room held a bed, a dresser, a washstand, nothing more. They'd been sleeping separately. She on the bed, he on the floor. "What are you doing?" he asked. "What we should have done from the beginning." She pulled her carpetbag from under the bed. "Making this real, Clementine. They want proof we're married." She began moving her clothes to the dresser. "We give them proof." Arthur watched her transform the space. Her brush beside his razor, her books among his clothes. The careful choreography of shared intimacy. "This doesn't change anything," he said. "It changes everything." She turned to face him. "We're not just surviving anymore. We're choosing each other." The storm raged outside. Inside, two people rearranged their lives around a new truth. Marriage as fortress. Partnership as defiance. "The money," Arthur said. "From the trust." "We'll have to wait." She folded her traveling dress. "Until this is resolved." "And if it's not resolved, then we find another way." She placed her hand on his chest. "We don't give up. We don't run. We face it together." The gesture was small, intimate. It carried the weight of choice, of commitment freely given despite impossible circumstances. Arthur covered her hand with his. Together. Outside, the storm howled its fury. Trees bent before the wind. The mountains disappeared behind sheets of rain. But inside the cabin, two people stood steady against the tempest. They'd weathered worse storms than this. They'd weather whatever came next. The foundation they'd built was stronger than wind or rain or the malice of powerful men. The morning would bring new challenges. Tonight they would face them as partners, as husband and wife, as two people who'd chosen love over fear. The storm could rage all it wanted. They had found shelter in each other. The smell of smoke woke Arthur before dawn. Not wood smoke from the cabin's chimney. Something acrid, chemical, wrong. He rolled from bed and reached for his boots. Beside him, Clementine stirred. Her hand found his arm in the darkness. "What is it?" "Stay here." Arthur stepped onto the porch. Orange light flickered through the trees. The direction of his equipment shed, his tools, his future burning in the pre-dawn darkness. By the time he reached the clearing, the fire had consumed everything: saws, axes, rope, the accumulated tools of a lifetime's work reduced to ash and twisted metal. John Marston arrived as the flames died. His face was grim in the fading light. Saw the glow from town. Arthur kicked at the smoking ruins. Accident. Accident doesn't smell like kerosene. John picked up a charred can. This was deliberate. The morning brought Sheriff Bell and a crowd of curious townspeople. They picked through the wreckage with the enthusiasm of carrion birds. "Shame," Bell said. "Man loses his tools, he loses his livelihood." "Unless he has insurance," Arthur replied. "Do you?" Arthur's silence was answer enough. Bell's smile was thin and satisfied, the smile of a man following orders. "Course, investigations take time," Bell continued. "Might find evidence of fraud. Insurance fraud, marriage fraud, all kinds of fraud." The crowd murmured its agreement. Righteous indignation wrapped in false concern. Arthur recognized the performance. The town preparing to cast out its sacrificial lambs. "We're not going anywhere," Arthur said. "No," Bell adjusted his badge. "Here you got bills coming due. No way to pay them now." The crowd pressed closer, hungry for drama, for the fall of someone who dared to rise above his station. "My husband will rebuild," Clementine said. She'd appeared at Arthur's side without sound. Her presence changed the atmosphere. The crowd shifted, uncomfortable with her dignity in the face of their persecution. "With what money?" Bell asked. "With what we have." "You have nothing," Clementine smiled. The expression held no warmth. "We have each other." That afternoon, Arthur sat in the charred remains of his shed. The metal tools had cooled enough to handle. He sorted through them, looking for anything salvageable. Most were ruined, warped by heat, handles burned away. The accumulated wealth of a working man reduced to scrap. Clementine appeared with a basket of food. She sat beside him in the ash. Her dress would be stained. She didn't seem to care. "The axe head is still good," she said. "Handle's gone." "Handles can be replaced." Arthur looked at his wife. This woman who'd lost everything and still spoke of rebuilding, who faced accusations with dignity and threats with defiance. "You could leave," he said. "Where would I go?" "Philadelphia. Back to your family. My family disowned me." She picked up a twisted piece of metal. "This is my family now." Evening brought visitors, not the curious townspeople, but Arthur's crew. Men who'd worked beside him for years, who understood the difference between accidents and arson. "This is Dutch's work," John said. "Can't prove it." "Don't need to prove it." Charles Smith spat into the ash. "Need to respond to it." "How?" "Same way he responded to you." Bill Williamson's hands were clenched. "Fire for fire." Arthur stood. The men faced him in the dying light. Good men, loyal men, men who'd followed him into danger before. "No, he." "Sighed, Arthur. I said no." His voice carried final authority. "We're not like him." "Then what?" John asked. "We just take this?" Arthur looked at his wife. She sat in the ruins of their dreams, her back straight, her chin lifted, the posture of someone who'd faced worse and survived. "We find another way," he said. That night, Clementine sat at the kitchen table, papers spread before her. The documents from her father's estate, the trust fund papers, the key to their salvation. "I need to write the letter," she said. "Accepting their terms?" "All of them." Her pen scratched across paper. "Full disclosure, complete investigation, whatever they require." Arthur read over her shoulder. The words were careful, precise. They told the truth without flinching. Her innocence, her persecution, her flight west. "This will destroy your reputation." He said, "My reputation is already destroyed." She signed her name. "Now we find out if the truth matters. And if it doesn't." She folded the letter, sealed it with wax. "Then we face whatever comes." The next morning brought new troubles. A notice tacked to their door. Eviction proceedings. The bank calling. In Arthur's loans. The systematic destruction of their life accelerating. At the post office, Dutch waited. His presence was no accident. He watched Clementine mail her letter with satisfaction. Contacting family? He asked. Conducting business. Dangerous thing, business. Dutch adjusted his cufflinks. Especially for people in your position. What position is that? Desperate. He stepped closer. But I'm a generous man. Might be willing to help. At what price? Leave town. Tonight. Both of you. I'll clear Arthur's debts. Give you traveling money. Fresh start somewhere else. Clementine studied his face. The careful composure. The slight tremor in his hands. The signs of a man under pressure. You're afraid, she said. Of what? Of what we might discover if we stay. Dutch's mask slipped, for just a moment. Long enough for truth to show through. You're playing a dangerous game. We're not playing at all. That evening, Arthur and Clementine sat by their fire. The cabin felt smaller now. Surrounded by enemies, threatened by forces beyond their control. The letter will take 2 weeks, she said. Dutch won't wait 2 weeks. Then we hold on. She reached for his hand. Whatever happens, we don't break. Arthur intertwined their fingers, felt the calluses on her palms, the strength in her grip. This woman who'd stood beside him in the ashes of their dreams. Together, he said, together. Outside the night was quiet, too quiet. The kind of stillness that preceded storms, or violence, or revelation. In the distance, Dutch's mansion glowed with lamplight. The seat of power in their small world. But power built on lies was fragile. It could be shattered by truth, if they could survive long enough to speak it. The fire settled into coals. Time ticked toward an uncertain future. 2 people holding fast against the darkness, waiting for dawn. For answers. For justice. Or for the final blow that would destroy them both. The response came at dawn. Not by telegraph, but by rider. A lawyer from Philadelphia, with mud on his boots and determination in his eyes. Mrs. Morgan? He stood on their porch, travel-worn and official. I'm here about your letter. Clementine appeared beside Arthur. Her face was composed, ready. Mr. Harrison, your father sent me. The lawyer's voice carried authority. To investigate your claims personally. Inside, Harrison spread documents across their table. Bank records, school accounts, official testimonies. The paper trail of Clementine's destroyed life. You were right, Harrison said. About everything. Arthur watched his wife's face. The careful control. The way she held herself still while vindication washed over her. The headmaster confessed, Harrison continued, when faced with federal charges. Admitted to framing you. To stealing the scholarship funds. And my father? Wants you to come home. Harrison's voice softened. To rebuild what was lost. Clementine's hands lay flat on the table. Arthur could see the tension in her shoulders. The weight of choices. Made and unmade. I am home, she said. That afternoon, Arthur found her in the ruins of their equipment shed. She sat among the charred metal, reading her father's letter. The pages trembled in her hands. He's offering everything, she said. Position at the university. Full restoration of my reputation. Financial backing for any venture I choose. Including this one. Including this one. She folded the letter. He wants to invest in our lumber operation. Make it a family business. Arthur felt the ground shift beneath his feet. The magnitude of what she was offering. The life they could build with such backing. What's the catch? No catch. She stood, brushing ash from her dress. Just his way of saying he's sorry. And Dutch? Dutch is about to discover what happens when you threaten the wrong person's daughter. The confrontation came at sunset. Arthur and Clementine walked into town together. Harrison beside them, The lawyer's presence changed everything. Made there. Accusations official. Dutch waited outside his mansion. His usual composure cracked at the edges. Sheriff Bell stood nearby, suddenly uncertain. "Mr. van der Linde," Harrison said. "I believe you know why I'm here." "I have no idea what you're talking about." "The forged timber rights. The fraudulent contracts. The systematic theft of smaller operators' claims." Harrison opened his briefcase. Including those belonging to the Morgan family. Arthur felt the pieces clicking together. The mystery of his father's financial troubles. The convenient timing of Dutch's offers. The desperation that had driven him to that dawn wedding. "You've been stealing from us for years," Arthur said. "Prove it." "I can." Clementine stepped forward. "With these." She produced a stack of documents. From her bag, papers Arthur had never seen before. Records hidden in his father's effects. Evidence of Dutch's crimes carefully preserved. "Your father was meticulous," she told Arthur. "Kept copies of everything. Knew someone was cheating him, but couldn't prove it alone." Dutch's face drained of color. "Those are private documents." "They're evidence," Harrison said, "of wire fraud, forgery, conspiracy to commit theft." The crowd that had gathered sensed the shift. The hunters becoming the hunted. Dutch's empire crumbling like a house built on sand. "You have no authority." "Here," Dutch said. "I have federal authority." Harrison produced a badge. "And a warrant for your arrest." The next morning brought federal marshals. They led Dutch away in chains while the town watched. The man who'd controlled their lives reduced to a common criminal. Sheriff Bell found new employment in the next county. The corrupt system that had protected Dutch collapsed with its patron. Justice arrived like spring rain after a long drought. Arthur and Clementine stood in the ruins of their equipment shed, but it no longer looked like destruction. It looked like opportunity, like the cleared ground where something better could grow. "We'll rebuild," she said. "Bigger than before?" "Better than before." She took his hand. "Fair wages. Honest dealing. The kind of business my father taught me to believe in." 6 months later, the Morgan Lumber Company employed half the town. The mill ran on schedule. The workers were paid fairly. The business thrived under the partnership of Arthur's expertise and Clementine's vision. They stood in their new office, watching the sun set over the valley. Clementine's pregnancy was showing now. The promise of family growing between them. "Any regrets?" Arthur asked. "About what?" "That dawn wedding. Marrying a stranger for survival." She turned to face him. Her smile held the warmth of shared trials, of love earned through hardship and choice. "I married a stranger," she said. "I fell in love with my husband." Arthur placed his hand over hers as she signed their latest contract, their biggest order yet. Their wedding rings caught the morning light, 2 bands of gold that had started as symbols of desperation and become promises of devotion. Outside, the town that had once rejected them now depended on them. The Miller land was theirs. The timber rights were legal. The future was bright as fresh sawdust and full of possibility. They'd built something lasting from the ashes of their separate defeats. A marriage, a business, a life worth living in a place worth calling home. The dawn that had brought them together in desperation had become the foundation of everything they'd ever wanted. 2 people who'd found in each other not just survival but salvation. The morning was young, the work was good, the love was real, and that is all to the story for now. Please let me know where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will create a story there. Consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. And if you enjoy our content, click this video on your screen. I promise you, it's worth watching. See you tomorrow.